I'm Dr. Patel, and I'm board certified in obesity, internal, and culinary medicine. And if you've never heard of the phrase culinary medicine before, I really love to think of it as like the how-to of healthy eating. It combines the science of medicine and nutrition with practical culinary skills and really helps patients translate that science into action in their day-to-day lives. And I'm really excited because I got two culinary demos for you today on easy to prepare recipes to include more healthful plant foods into your day-to-day eating. And the reason I focus on healthful plant foods is that, nutrition for our patients with cancer, as far as like what constitutes the foundation of nutrition, really isn't different from the rest of the general population. We really want to focus on incorporating fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. If you're not familiar with legumes, that's the kind of the family that includes lentils and beans. And that really, we're talking about that as a foundation, but that doesn't mean those are the only foods that you can ever include. There's different cultures, taste preferences, backgrounds, nutritional needs. And so, we have to create a really personalized approach when it comes to healthy nutrition for our patients. I think the challenges that patients with cancer can face is that there's certain, treatment related or disease related effects that can make it difficult for you to meet your nutritional needs. And we've heard it multiple times on this conference today, but really working with that multidisciplinary team, especially the registered dietitian, if that's available to you, to help troubleshoot and address some of those challenges, especially side effects of treatment. If you are having nausea or if pain is limiting your ability to eat, or if there's, mouth sores or other issues that you're having, like GI distress with like vomiting or diarrhea, I think it's really important to work with that team because, those side effects are usually unique to treatment for patients with cancer. And we want to make sure we address those so that you can meet your nutritional needs. One of the things that I like to focus on, especially for patients with cancer, is making sure they're getting enough, what I call high quality protein into their day-to-day eating. As we're all aging, we're losing lean muscle mass, and our muscle mass is so important to try to keep as much as possible because, as you age, you get more frail, or when you have illness, you can become more frail. And we really want that muscle mass to help us stay stronger for a lot of different reasons. And I think, I really view nutrition as like the foundation of healthcare. And, I don't think we do a very good job in our current medical system emphasizing that, but I think that's starting to change. And I think that this will, healthy nutrition helps our patients with cancer really just improve their side effect profile, their longevity, and also tolerating treatment better. And so I'm just so excited to be here and talk to all of you. I want you to all know one thing that I tell my patients all the time, that, it's when you're trying to make healthy eating habits or you're trying to eat more healthy, it's really important not to get caught up on the perfection of it. My motto in life is progress, not perfection. It's the motto that I follow for my own life when I'm trying to make healthy lifestyle changes. And we really, I think as a society, there's a lot of like, kind of negative messaging around food. You must cut this out, or you have to cut that out. This has got to go. You can never enjoy, or have the foods that you enjoy from time to time. And it's, I think that's just not the best message to send. And so I ask my patients to flip the script. I ask them, well, instead of focusing on what needs to go from your diet, how about we focus on like what we can add in? And one of the most common things that my patients tell me is, Doc, I just don't like vegetables. I just don't like them. And so for me, because this is very interesting when patients say that, I ask them, well, what do you mean? What vegetables do you like? Can we focus on adding more of those? Can you tell me how the vegetables were prepared? And I think that's where the culinary medicine aspect of it really comes in is, not everybody likes raw veggies, and not everybody can tolerate raw veggies, and not everybody likes steamed vegetables either. And so trying to find ways using different culinary techniques, creating a blueprint with my patients to help them get more veggies on their plate. So without further ado, I'm going to be showing you two recipes today. So the first one is quinoa lettuce wraps with spicy peanut sauce. And then the other one is a buckwheat noodle salad. And you're going to notice that both of these recipes share kind of common ingredients. And this is why I picked them, because one of the things that I also hear from my patients is that I just don't have time, right? I don't have time. And in this busy, crazy world, especially if you're, navigating healthcare and treatment for your cancer, time is it's really limited, right? And so I like to pick recipes that can cross-utilize ingredients. So it's not that you're having to, make 2 recipes from scratch, but you can at least do some of the prep work for both of the recipes and then use them in different ways to create different dishes. So that's what I did. And that's why I purposely picked these 2 recipes. And I'll talk a little bit as I'm going, but let's get started. I'm going to pull my camera down. Okay, perfect. Great. So I have quinoa here that I cooked last night. Actually, I made it ahead of time. So this was 1/2 cup of quinoa. And oh, by the way, I just want to mention, I'm going to kind of talk about the ingredients, but you don't have to write anything down. We're going to send out the recipes so that if you all want to try this at home, you can totally do that. So this is 1/2 cup cooked quinoa, meaning that it creates a whole cup of cooked quinoa. So I cooked it in a little bit of low sodium broth, but you could actually, use just water and it's fine. I put it on the stovetop, very easy. Was cooking while I was chopping all of my veggies. So to this part of the, let me just switch something really quick here. To this quinoa, I'm gonna first, sorry guys, 1 second. Okay, to this quinoa, I'm going to add some diced bell peppers. So I took green, yellow, or green, orange, and red bell pepper. And I diced it up pretty finely. So I'm gonna use my hands. My hands are clean, always important. So we'll put that over there. And then I'm gonna add some chopped red onion. So I did this last night. And if you guys, if you can't see, just let me know, okay? So we put that in there. And then I love garlic. So garlic and red onion, I wanna just kind of say one thing about them. They contain a special kind of fiber called prebiotics. If you've never heard of that, you've probably heard of probiotics, which I won't get into. That's a whole lecture on its own. But prebiotics are basically a type of fiber certain fibers are a type of prebiotic. But basically, they can be used by these beneficial bacteria that are in your gut to create beneficial compounds, essentially. And so garlic and onions and apples, amongst other foods like asparagus, have this special kind of prebiotic fiber. And I'm just kind of throwing these tidbits out there just for your knowledge only. I don't want you to get fixated on like, okay, I can only eat these foods. I think the goal always is to include a variety of different types of foods in your day-to-day eating so that you get, all the different kind of nutrients that are out there. So we're going to add just some garlic that I minced up. So what I did is I actually took the garlic, I put it in my chopper. I did not mince this by hand. I actually hate mincing garlic. It's like one of my least favorite activities, but I like to just mince it ahead of time. I'll use it throughout the week in different dishes. So it's a nice little time-saving tip. If you don't like mincing garlic or you don't want to even deal with that, then there's actually these garlic cubes that you can get at different like grocery stores that are in the frozen aisle. And I like to use those sometimes, especially when I'm in a pinch and I just don't have a lot of time to make dinner. I just use those instead, and that's totally fine. We're going to add some lime juice. This was freshly squeezed lime juice. And then I'm going to add some fresh ground pepper. This is garlic pepper. I have kind of an obsession with garlic. My husband's like, oh, the extra garlic in here today. So we're going to do that, and we're going to mince this. This is going to be the base for our lettuce wrap. And then what we're going to do next is actually make the sauce, the spicy peanut sauce. So we're going to give that a good mix. So as you can see, we added some onions, garlic, bell pepper. It smells quite good. I know y'all can't really smell it, but I promise it smells good. And this recipe seems to be a hit with people that in the past have told me they don't like quinoa. Something special about quinoa is that, first off, it's a whole grain, and both of the kind of grain bases that I'm using today are whole grains. If you've never heard of that word, that's okay. A whole grain is essentially a grain of a quote unquote cereal or pseudo cereal, but essentially like a plant essentially. And it contains all 3 parts of the grain. It contains the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. All grains start off as whole grains, but what happens to certain grains is that they get processed, where they remove the bran and the germ, and you're just left with like kind of like the carby endosperm with some vitamins. So when you process it that way, you kind of remove some of the nutrients, especially the fiber that's sitting in the bran. And so I always say that, you know, we want to try to eat as health promoting carbohydrate containing foods as possible. And whole grains are definitely in that category because they contain all of the nutrients since the grain is still intact. And so quinoa is great. It's a gluten-free whole grain. It's also higher in protein compared to some of the other whole grains out there. And so I like to eat it. It's very easy to cook. You could cook it in a rice cooker. You could cook it on the stove. You could cook it in a pressure cooker. I have an Instant Pot. You can cook a big batch and actually just freeze it for later. It freezes really well. And you can also just find frozen quinoa. I've only found it at Whole Foods, so it's a little bit pricier there. So I just like to make my own and just freeze a big batch of it and then use it like throughout the week. Or if I'm in a pinch again, like I'll just, you know, maybe I'll make this. So yeah, this is the quinoa. So we'll put that to the side. Now for the sauce, I have a couple of tablespoons of peanut butter with honey, 1 tablespoon of honey in here. And so we're gonna mix that together. So my honey and my peanut butter are pretty runny to begin with. You could actually just put this in the microwave for like 15 seconds and it'll really loosen it up. But the honey that I'm using today is actually from Greece because my husband and I went there several months ago and brought some honey back and I haven't used it. So I said, well, let's use it today. So it was nice and not thick. So there's that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of water. We're also gonna add 1 tablespoon of lime juice. And I don't have sriracha because there is a sriracha shortage, sadly. And so I'm gonna add a little bit of chili. And this is just the chili garlic sauce. And then instead of soy sauce today, I'm actually going to be adding something called coconut aminos. And if you're not familiar with coconut aminos, it's a soy-free soy sauce alternative. And the reason I like it is because it gives a pretty similar profile to soy sauce, but it has almost like half the amount of sodium that normal soy or regular low sodium soy sauce has. So I have low sodium soy sauce here for comparison. So 1 tablespoon of this low sodium soy sauce from Trader Joe's is 530 milligrams. And then 1 tablespoon of this coconut aminos is 270 milligrams, so almost half of what that soy sauce is from Trader Joe's. And it, like I said, very similar profile. It's also gluten-free in case if there's people that want to or have to avoid gluten for any reason. Soy sauce is not gluten-free in general, but this coconut amino says, I got this at the grocery store. This has been my like go-to, especially for our patients with liver disease and cirrhosis. You know, if they're really having to watch their sodium intake, I always talk to them about coconut aminos. The other thing to keep in mind is that even though I always tell my patients this, sometimes the 2.3 grams sodium kind of reduction or limitation, I should say, or the 2 gram sodium limitation, that's actually not that far off from what the general population should be eating. In the US, we traditionally eat a lot more sodium than we should be eating. We eat about 3.4 grams, and a lot of that comes from packaged processed foods or foods that are made outside of the home. And so I try to make my patients feel better and tell them that, hey, look, I know it seems like a restriction, but it's actually what your doctor is eating or what I'm trying to eat too. So I think it, you know, hopefully puts that into a better context. Because like I said, it's about abundance and not restriction. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons of this in here. And then I'm going to add some black pepper. We're going to mix it all together. And if your sauce is too thick, you could also add, you know, a little bit more water in there. That's totally fine. And I might have to do that. So I'm just going to, because my peanut butter is sticking. And this is where that microwaving really helps. So we'll just have this little nice whisk that I will just put it together. And okay, that looks decently good. So then I have butter lettuce, which is these nice little leaves, and they're great for lettuce wraps. The other thing that I like to do sometimes is I'll do something similar, but I'll do it with tofu instead of quinoa. And that just gives me a little bit more protein. So it makes the meal more, what I like to call balanced. I think that, there's a lot of kind of refined carbohydrate heavy foods in our food supply, and those aren't really filled with fiber and protein, which makes them less filling. And so I like to think of ways to balance out my meals. And so I think tofu or another source of lean protein is a great alternative to quinoa when you're making these lettuce wraps. So we have our lettuce wraps. I added some of the mixture to it. And then I'm just going to drizzle the sauce on top. And this is what we got. I know y'all can't smell it or taste it. I really wish you could, but I promise you, these are very tasty, even for people that are not a fan of quinoa. I'm gonna add some more. Okay, great. This is gonna be lunch for me in a little bit. That was recipe number 1. So recipe number 2 is a buckwheat noodle salad. So if you're not familiar with buckwheat, it is a grain, a whole grain. And contrary to what you see in the name, it doesn't have wheat in it. So it is another gluten-free whole grain. And buckwheat, when you think about it in from the Japanese culture, there's a certain type of noodle called soba noodles, and those are also made from buckwheat. I'm using something a little bit different. This is just buckwheat pasta. I like this pasta compared to traditional pasta because, and I don't know if you can see this, but for a 2-ounce serving, which is pretty standard across the board when you're comparing different pasta types, there's 5 grams of dietary fiber, and it does have 8 grams of protein. And so I do like to use this one as much as possible when I'm making this salad. And then the other thing to think about is if you are a pasta lover, there are, lentil and chickpea-based pastas out there that can also add some more protein to your day-to-day eating. Some patients don't like them or like the texture, and there's different ones. And even I'm picky about the texture, so I have a couple brands that I like. But I like these buckwheat noodles because I don't think their texture is off. And so this is a nice little quote unquote pasta alternative, but that's what I'm going to use to make this salad. So first I'm going to put the actual quote unquote salad together. So instead of, when I was talking about cross-utilizing ingredients, so instead of those diced, excuse me guys, I am getting a call, and that is
you can see, we've lost Dr. Patel for a quick second, but I know she will be right back. She is, I think she has 2 devices on, so I know she hears us from the other. So we will just give her a quick moment to join us back. But hopefully you guys are coming up with some questions for her and Dr. Jacob in about 10 minutes when we come to the Q&A moderated by Dr. Patty. But the first item looked delicious, right? Did it not look really good? I can't wait to get the recipe to try and make that. It looked great. And then the pasta, I'm not sure what she's going to do with the pasta, but it looks really great. How many people love pasta? There we go.
Hey y'all, I'm so sorry I got kicked off.
No worries.
Okay, so what I was saying, apologies. I was saying with the pasta, so with the buckwheat noodles, we're going to add these sliced bell peppers in there. So instead of dicing them, like I said, with the cross-utilizing the ingredients, I just slice them. And then to dice them, I just put the little slices together and just quickly diced them for the other recipe. So we added those, and then I'm going to add some cucumber because I love cucumber. And then I'm going to actually slice up some cilantro. So let's just put that there for a second. So I like to slice up my cilantro, stems and all. I eat it all. But there's actually a funny kind of fun fact, I should say, that there are actually people out there that have just a really strong aversion to cilantro. And it's something to do with their taste buds. It's like there's a genetic variant out there where their taste buds just like process cilantro in a way that just is so not appetizing and very bitter. So there are people out there, you'll probably meet some that will tell you, like, I just don't like cilantro. It just does not taste good. And that's okay. Those people exist. I, on the other hand, am thankful I do not have that variant, but that is a good thing. So I have this bench scraper. I love this bench scraper. It's great. It's great to just use to clean your bench off and scrape ingredients into the bowl. The other thing I'm going to add is sliced green onion. So lots of fresh veggies and the herb with cilantro, and we're just going to kind of mix that together. Okay, and I like to use these tonged noodle, or this tonged spoon to mix these noodles. So we're going to do that. Okay, great. We're going to put that to the side for a second. And now we're going to make the sauce for it. The sauce is actually a little special. You know, it contains this Korean fermented red pepper paste called gochujang. And I really like it because it adds this like savory element to it. It's not spicy. And it does contain sodium or salt. And so that's why we're mindful of the salt that we add in the other parts of the recipe as well. And I'm going to use coconut aminos again in this particular recipe to cut down on the salt intake. But I found this at Trader Joe's. There's another brand. This is actually the one that I use. This one's not open yet, but I found this just at the grocery store. It just adds a very unique flavor to the sauce. And so that's what we're going to use here. To this, I'm going to add some sesame oil. I have chili sesame oil, so that's what we're going to use. And then we're going to add some rice vinegar, and that's going to be about 2 teaspoons worth. So I'm going to measure out 2 teaspoons worth. And then we're going to add some sesame seeds. So sesame seeds are part of those health promoting foods that I was talking about, you know, nuts and seeds. I love sesame seeds. They add just another layer of texture to foods, especially my noodle and my fried rice dishes. I always add sesame seeds. So we're going to add some sesame seeds to this as well. And we're also going to add a tablespoon of the coconut aminos. So we'll do that here. And I'm using that in place of soy sauce because it has about half the amount of sodium. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of water. And then we're going to add a touch of just a little bit of maple syrup to kind of balance out the flavors. So we're just going to do about a teaspoon or so. And we're going to mix all of this together. So I got my whisk here. The paste is a little thick. Just going to put that all together. So as you can see, kind of different sauces. The other one's peanut based, but this one is the gochujang based. But we used coconut aminos. The kind of unique things to the sauce were the sesame seeds, sesame oil, and the rice vinegar. It smells really good and kind of has this beautiful red flavor, or a beautiful red color, I should say. Okay, so we have that sauce mixed pretty well. And then all you have to do is we're just going to add the sauce to the bowl. And you can add more sesame seeds. I probably will because it's nice to add that crunch. And I like to use this kind of spoon again. And we're just going to cover. You can also use tongs. I think tongs would work really great here, just to really incorporate the sauce into the noodles. And as you can see, it's not about being perfect. I clearly am making a little mess here, but that's okay. Perfection is overrated, and the goal is to get a nice, tasty, health promoting meal on your plate. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Not everything is as pretty as it is on Instagram when it comes to recipes. The other thing I like to do as well, I like tofu. I actually didn't like it growing up at all. And I think that's because I didn't know how to prepare it or how to flavor it. And I thought it was really boring, which is, I think, a common thing that I encounter with patients too. It's not that they really don't like vegetables or don't like all vegetables. It's just that they haven't had a chance to find them in a way that, or eat them in a way that they like for themselves. And so, I think it's important to explore and make sure that there's, or troubleshoot and explore ways for you to incorporate these foods into your day-to-day eating. So I just grab my tongs because it's easier. All right, so we're just gonna plate my noodles, and you can, top it with more cilantro. I have a little bit more green onion, so I'm gonna do that. And then I'm just gonna add some more sesame seeds because why not? And voila, it is ready. So like I said, very easy, kind of easier, I should say, recipes to put together. And I really like to teach my patients blueprints for recipes. So this sauce, the peanut sauce, for instance, you could even make it in a bigger batch and thin it out more. And you could actually make peanut noodles out of it. If you're allergic to peanuts, you could use some sort of, actually I was thinking about this the other day when I was thinking of recipes. And if you're allergic to peanuts, the other thing I was thinking about is making avocado sauce. So you could have like an avocado sauce on top of those quinoa lettuce wraps. There's also seed butters out there, like I think I've seen sunflower seed butter, and there's a number of those. There's also tahini, which is made from sesame seeds. It's a paste that you can use in different types of recipes. You could use it as a sauce for like falafel or a pita. You could use it in your hummus. You could also use it as a base for, I sometimes make like a tahini sauce for my pasta. So there's a lot of different ingredients and ways to incorporate those. It's just a matter of a little bit of experimentation and finding what works for you, right? Because if it doesn't work for you in the long run and it's not sustainable for you in the long run, then then it's probably not something worth pursuing, at least in the interim. So there's a lot of people out there that will tell you, especially for our patients with cancer, that, there's X, Y, and Z diet they tried, or they've, somebody's done this and it's worked for them for whatever health outcome they're trying to achieve. But when you really dig deeper, you realize that it's only worked for them in the short term. And my goal as a physician is really setting my patients up for success for the rest of their lives, right? Because if you're doing something and it's not going to be sustainable, then it's just not the right path for you. And we want to make this a part of your lifestyle. It shouldn't feel so burdensome, and there should be enjoyment out of it. So I just, food brings people together. I love talking about food with my patients. I love telling them that, there's these wonderful ways to make these healthy meals, and that we shouldn't be viewing eating healthfully as a punishment. So yeah, I think that's all I've got.